Call of Cthulhu is an interesting title that offers players an engaging Lovecraftian experience they will not soon forget. Unfortunately, the lack of gameplay elements, high price tag, and slow start might turn many potential fans away. Hey everyone, Tyler here with Gilded Reviews, and today we are taking an in-depth look at Call of Cthulhu, the new psychological horror title from developer Cyanide Studios. For full disclosure, I was provided this game for free for my honest review. All thoughts and opinions expressed here are my own and are not influenced by the developer in any way. Before we begin, I want everyone to know that I am not versed in Lovecraftian lore, and I know very little about cosmic horror. In fact, I have never had any interest in the horror genre as a whole. This game has begun to change that for me, sparking interest in the universe H.P. Lovecraft helped create. Anyhow, let's not waste any more time and jump right in, starting with the art, animation, and sound. The first thing you will notice is that the graphics are not the greatest. They're not bad per se, and neither are the animations. However, in a game that focuses on immersion, the art, animations, and sound are very important, and I feel like they didn't focus on it as much as they could have. Cyanide Studios is not what I would consider a small developer. Overall, I feel that it could be better, but it isn't bad enough to dislike the game. You will just notice things like reused animations frequently, and it can break immersion. Moving on, let's talk about the basic gameplay elements and what you can expect while playing Call of Cthulhu. This title feels like a passion project. You can tell the developers loved this universe and wanted to create more of a story-driven experience, introducing players to the world of the occult, rather than creating a title with extremely addictive gameplay. Through the majority of the game, you will be wandering around clicking on icons and listening to your character talk about what he is looking at. This pertains to the investigative aspect of the game as well. Here you piece together parts of a scene to get a better idea of what happened. The puzzles also work in this way, forcing you to wander around an area till you have located all of the points of interest. Don't get me wrong, there are a few decent ones, but the majority of the puzzles feel like fetch quests, and unfortunately, none of them are terribly difficult. Moving on, the beginning of the game really felt like it dragged on, and I was having a hard time getting into it. That changed once the story started to unfold a little bit, and some of the more horror aspects started to show themselves. All of a sudden, the pace of the game picked up very quickly, and I was introduced to a few new mechanics, stealth being a major one. I found this rather nice. It made the game much more frightening and padded the linear progression with new gameplay. Overall, it made Call of Cthulhu a much more enjoyable experience. Real quick, before we get into the next part of this review, I want to bring up the skill system. This is a nice addition to the game and allows you to further customize the way you want to play. Unfortunately, these skills are a side note to the story. They open up new dialogue options and will possibly allow you to skip part of a puzzle, but overall they don't change the progression of the story a whole lot, at least from what I could tell. Let's talk about the main things that drew me to this title: the choices the player makes, how they affect the story, and the game's multiple endings. Unfortunately, in order to really explain this, I am going to have to put this part of the review under a spoiler warning. If you want to jump ahead, I have put a timestamp to the conclusion down in the description. Otherwise, I will give everyone about 10 more seconds to switch off the video, or be prepared for a few minor spoilers. Okay, this is the part of the review I really wanted to get into. I want to start with the stealth mechanic and how it changes over time. Around maybe a quarter of the way through the game, you will encounter your first stealth mission, and well, it is a bit underwhelming to say the least. You are tasked with escaping a mental institution, and unfortunately the guards on duty seem to be half asleep. At one point, I literally walk in front of a guard, look at his face to make sure he is awake, and open the door right in front of him. The next stealth mission is when you encounter one of the game's main enemies, the Shambler. This is a boss fight that is surprisingly fantastic, other than the fact that you have no idea what to do. The goal here is to use an item to do something specific, but there is little to no instruction on how to do that. Much of this fight ended up being trial and error. Try this out, die, try something else, die, until you figure out what you need to do. I know this sounds a little frustrating, but honestly, it was one of the best parts of this game. The frantic pace and atmosphere of the fight had my heart pumping, and I had a great time figuring out what to do. This was done by recreating that same feeling you had in Alien Isolation. A big monster is coming to kill you, and you use the sounds it makes and the available hiding places to get away. This mechanic came out of nowhere around halfway through the game, and really managed to break up the monotony. The stealth changes at least one more time, incorporating a search and find mechanic and death timer. Moving on, the main reason we are under a spoiler warning right now is because of the story. The story is okay, it's strong enough to get me interested in the universe, but does not deliver in any meaningful way. The developer did such a fantastic job recreating these creatures. I just don't understand why they were not developed more. The books littered around the map did nothing for me. I mean, they increased my character's understanding of the occult, but did nothing for the player themselves. This could have been a great opportunity to bring more lore into the game, giving the players a chance to learn about the universe H.P. Lovecraft created. The other main issue is that Call of Cthulhu is made up of little choices that appear with a tag that says this choice will alter or affect your destiny. It also autosaves after each choice, making them feel even more pertinent. The reality of this system is that these choices, at least to me, seem rather meaningless. From what I understand, if you replay through, there might be some minor changes, like people being alive towards the end, but for the most part, the story continues the same, and the endings are not affected by these choices at all. This makes the entire mechanic feel like a facade, just something to keep you glued to your seat when in reality, the choices have little impact on the game. The last thing I want to bring up before we close this review out is that you never really deal with Cthulhu himself. Instead, you deal with Leviathan. In conclusion, Call of Cthulhu has done a great job sparking my interest in Lovecraftian horror. Unfortunately, there is not enough to really get an idea of what this universe has to offer, and the game is negatively affected by this. The illusion of choice is another issue I have. Maybe I'm wrong and these choices made a huge difference, but from what I could tell, they didn't affect the story or ending, which kills the replayability of this game. This entire game can be completed in 10 to 14 hours. And with a starting price of $45, you really need to be sure that this title is right for you. I am a firm believer that a game should give you at least 1 hour of playtime per dollar. Call of Cthulhu simply doesn't make the cut. And even though I enjoyed a good portion of this game, I can't recommend it at full price. If you are interested in this title, I would recommend picking it up on a deep discount. Overall, I would give Call of Cthulhu a 6.0 out of 10. It has some great elements, and overall, I had a decent time. I can tell the developers put a lot of effort into bringing Lovecraftian lore into an easily accessible format. Unfortunately, it is short, the mechanics all feel superficial, and the choices you make don't really affect the outcome of the game. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This title had a lot of promise, but unfortunately, a few key parts were missing from the overall experience. Also, I wanted to give you guys a quick update on the Discord server. I should have it up sometime after the holidays. I thought it was a better use of my time to try and get a couple more videos out before the holidays are over. Anyhow, thanks again, and don't forget, if you liked the video, throw me a thumbs up, check out some of our other content, or consider subscribing. It really helps me out.